Well, good morning, church. You can tell that school is, at least UCO is out, and a lot of people are traveling. We don't have very many people here, but those who are here, welcome. We're glad you're here. Let's pray. Father God, you love us. And that is the greatest gift that we can give, is your love, seen in your Son, Jesus Christ. Lord, we just ask that you would be with us today now as we open your word and we look at what you have to say. Just enrich our lives and show us your truth. May you be the speaker. May your Spirit rest among us. In Christ's name. You know, moms, it is Mother's Day. In case you didn't know. Moms hear a lot of things from their kids, right? Lots of different kinds of things. I'm going to give you 10 things that moms do not want to hear. Now, you moms in the audience, you'll have to agree or disagree, but here are 10 things that a mother doesn't want to hear. Number 1, I swallowed a goldfish. Probably not. Number 2, Mommy, your lipstick works better than crayons. You know, does grape juice leave a stain? The principal called. But Dad says that word all the time. What's it cost to fix a window? Has anyone seen my earthworms? Or snake? I painted your shoes pretty, huh, Mommy? The dog doesn't like dressing up in your clothes. Or, I'm moving out. Although maybe someday some mothers would like to hear that one. These are things moms don't want to hear. Don't want to hear. As it is Mother's Day, and our memory verse even talks about mothers. Proverbs 4:3 says this, For I too was a son to my father, still tender and cherished by my mother. And cherished by my mother. I love that word, cherished. You ever think what that really means? It involves so many different things. Cherish is not just love. Cherish is love and guarding and nurturing and guiding. It includes all those things. It's so much more. I mean, I can love somebody, but to cherish them. Cherish them is to hold it close. Maybe not always physically, but definitely in the heart, right? Emotionally. Cherish them. I was a son to my father, still tender. But I was cherished by my mother. You know, there's a lot of wonderful things we can say about our moms, right? Lots of wonderful things. But we're going to go through a few to determine this question. What is the best thing about a great mom? What is the best thing about a great mom? Well, first of all, you might say, well, a great mom, she loves her children. She loves her children. That's a good thing, isn't it? I mean, looking out at this group and looking at me, it's a really good thing our moms love us. Because quite frankly, if it was left to our dads, we'd be dead. You know, doing some of the things that I did when I was a kid. It was just my dad, I wouldn't be up here probably. You know, our dads, you know, they only have a certain amount of patience, you know, when it comes to kids. But moms, wow. Dads love their kids too, don't get me wrong. Mom, man, she loves her kids. Not only did we survive, we thrived, didn't we? Under our mom's care. But it results, that thriving results from love. And we see this in the Bible. And one example, for instance, we see this love in a woman named Jochebed. Jochebed is the mother of Moses and Aaron and Miriam. And we see her story in Exodus 1 through 10. It says, doesn't name her here, it names her later, but it says, now a man of the tribe of Levi married a Levite woman. And she became pregnant and gave birth to a son. And when she saw that he was a fine child, she hid him for 3 months. But when she could hide him no longer, she got a papyrus basket for him and coated it with tar and pitch. Then she placed the child in it and put it among the reeds along the bank of the Nile. His sister stood at a distance to see what would happen to him. Then Pharaoh's daughter went down to the Nile to bathe, and her attendants were walking along the riverbank. She saw the basket among the reeds and sent her female slave to get it. She opened it and saw the baby. He was crying, and she felt sorry for him. Well, this is one of the Hebrew babies, she said. Then his sister asked Pharaoh's daughter, shall I go and get one of the Hebrew women to nurse the baby for you? Yes, go, she answered. So the girl went and got the baby's mother. Pharaoh's daughter said to her, take this baby and nurse him for me, and I will pay you. So the woman took the baby and nursed him. When the child grew older, she took him to Pharaoh's daughter, and he became her son. She named him Moses, saying, I drew him out of the water. Now, to back that up a little bit, you know why this is all happening is because the Hebrews had gotten so numerous among the Egyptians that the new Pharaoh, not the one that Joseph had known, but the new Pharaoh's coming along, he's going, wow, look at all these people. You know, they might overrun us, they might, rise up or whatever. And so he had made a decree that all of the male babies were to be killed. Right? So to keep your child, to keep this male baby is pretty risky. Well, wait a minute. Jochebed, we said 3 kids, all right? She already had a son. She had Aaron. And she had a daughter. She had Miriam. This is another boy, another child. It's dangerous. But Jochebed does everything in her power to keep her child alive. She doesn't sacrifice her child. She resorts to trickery, but to save her child. Because she loves her child. Mother's love is strong, it's powerful. It's beyond logic, because logic in some ways would say, well, I've got 2 kids and I can protect them maybe, and just sacrifice this one. No. Mother's saying, no, I'm going to take all 3 of them. This is my child, and I'm not going to give them up. A mother's love is deep and forever. Another thing, though, you can say, a mother's love, that's a great thing. But what else? What is the best thing about a mother? Well, maybe it's the fact that she knows her child is a gift from God. She knows her child is a gift from God. Godly women recognize this. That this is not just a happenstance. That this child was given to them by God to raise. Speaking of gifts that you can get or give, there was a boy and he was wanting to know what in the world to get his mom for Mother's Day. You guys already have Mother's Day's gift down here? Okay, you got it. Client's going, I got it right here. Okay, good. Boy was wondering, what can I get Mom for Mother's Day? I don't want to just give her chocolate or various other things. I want to give her something special. My wife, any gift is like, I want chocolate with nuts. Okay, and that drives my kids nuts. It's like, no, you gotta have something else. I want chocolate. Dark chocolate. Sorry, not milk. Dark chocolate with nuts. But anyway, the kids are like, what can I get Mom? I want to give her something special. And so he's talking to the neighbor girl. He's like, what can I do? And she said, well, I know. Why don't you give her something really special? Why don't you, I don't know, keep your room really clean and really orderly? Or, I know what you can do. You could go to bed whenever she says without arguing. Always brush your teeth without being reminded. Okay? When she calls you, don't be sitting and playing at your computer or something like that. Go and be with her right when she calls. Or I know, you fight with your siblings all the time, your brother and sister. Hey, don't fight anymore with them. Especially at the dinner table. I know that drives you crazy. The boy looked at her and says, "No, I want something practical." Kids are willing. Yeah, kids are willing to give sometimes, but, godly moms, they understand that the child himself, or the child herself, is the real gift. The real gift that comes from God. Then Hannah in the Bible, she knew that about Samuel, right? And you know the story, we've talked about it. Hannah was childless. She was the second wife. And the other wife was getting pregnant, had kids, and holding it against her. And Hannah desired a child. She prayed fervently. So much that the priest, the high priest Eli, thought she was drunk. She was praying so fervently for a child. And God blessed her, and she got a son. She got Samuel. But she recognized who that son came from. And we see in 1 Samuel 1:20 this. So in the course of time, Hannah became pregnant and gave birth to a son. But she named him Samuel, saying, "Because I asked the Lord for him." In other words, this child is from God. And this Hannah, we know, did something amazing. She gave Samuel back. She gave Samuel back. She dedicated, she had made a promise she was going to dedicate this child to God. And so after the child was weaned, after no longer needing mommy's milk and could maybe toggle along a little bit, could eat solid food, she took Samuel back to the temple and gave him to the priest to be raised there. Wow, that would have been hard, right? You and I, as we grow, we become parents, etc., we have to learn to give our kids to God too. Maybe not take our kids to the temple or something like that. God may not be asking us, but we still have to give over our kids to God. That means that as a parent, we can't say, well, this child is so much mine, this is exactly what this child is going to do, etc. No, you have to let God be in charge. You have to say, God, this is my child's life, and I'm giving my child to you. I'm trusting you to bless my child. I'm trusting you to take care of my child. I'm trusting that you know best for my child. And that's what a mom has to do. She has to give her child to God. Even though this wonderful gift has been given to her, she can't hold on to too much. She has to say, his future, her future, whatever, is in your hands, Lord. That's a wonderful thing about a mother, to be able to do that. But there's another thing. You can look and say, what else is great? What is the best thing about mom? Oftentimes, she is willing to sacrifice for her child. She's willing to sacrifice for her child. I granted, some kids, they're willing to do the same for their moms, to sacrifice for their moms. Take the case of the two kids, 6-year-old and a 4-year-old, who decided that they didn't want mommy to work on Mother's Day. So they were going to make mommy lunch. Mommy agreed. And so little Julie and little Joey began to make lunch in the morning for mom. And she can hear them, bang, crash, boom, bam, in the kitchen, various kinds of things for about 3 hours. And after 3 hours, She sits at the table and her eyes kind of gravitate over to the kitchen, and she can see her once spotless kitchen now has about 9 dirty pots and pans. Half of the silverware has been used. You know, all of the measuring cups, various plates, etc. The sink is piled high. The counters are piled high with dishes. And she sits down to eat, and her reaction to her kids is a big smile. And she says, "Thank you. That was the best Jell-O I've ever eaten." You know, I wonder who made the biggest sacrifice that day. The mom or the kids? Because, you know, moms, I mean, think about some of the things you did when you were a little kid. And you're so wanting to please mom. Oh, mommy. And you're making a bigger mess than anything else. And then mom just smiles and loves you. Wow. But one of my favorite examples of sacrificial love is shown by the widow of Zarephath in 1 Kings 17, 7 through 15. Elijah, there's a big drought going on in Israel. And it says he's been out this brook where he's been eating and drinking. It says sometime later the brook dried up because there had been no rain in the land. Then the word of the Lord came to him. Go at once to Zarephath in the region of Sidon and stay there. I've directed a widow there to supply you with food. So he went to Zarephath, and when he came to the town gate, a widow was there gathering sticks. He called to her and asked, "Would you bring me a little water in a jar so I may have a drink?" As she was going to get it, he called, "And bring me, please, a piece of bread." "Surely as the Lord your God lives," she replied, "I don't have any bread. Only a handful of flour in a jar, and a little olive oil in a jug. I'm gathering a few sticks to take home and make a meal for myself and my son, that we may eat it and die." Elijah said to her, "Don't be afraid. Go home and do as you have said, but first make a small loaf of bread for me from what you have and bring it to me. And then make something for yourself and your son. For this is what the Lord, the God of Israel, says. The jar of flour will not be used up, and the jug of oil will not run dry until the day the Lord sends rain on the land." She went away and did as Elijah told her. So there was food every day for Elijah and for the woman and her family. But how risky was that? Here is a woman, she's out gathering sticks. She has a little bit of flour and a little bit of oil. And she's going to feed herself and her son, and then they're going to die. That's all they've got. And here's this guy saying, "No, make me something first." She's willing to sacrifice that in the hope that what he's saying is right. In the hope that he is a man of God. I'm sure there were a lot of tricksters out there, right? Times are tough. People are stealing. But she's trusting. She's willing to sacrifice everything she has just for the chance of saving her child. I remember, I've told this story before, but it's been a while. But there was, famine in Africa, and there was a really bad case of it. And there was a woman in this camp, and she's just starving to death, skin and bones. And she's got a little baby, she's holding this little baby, and the baby is so listless, also starving. And one of the aid workers comes by, and all they've got to give is for each one is a little sweet potato, cooked sweet yam. And so she gives this lady, who can just barely move because she's starving, the sweet potato. And the lady begins tearing off pieces of it and putting it in her mouth, and she'll chew it. It takes her a long time. And then she reaches in and takes the meshed up food, and she pries open her baby's lips and kind of rubs the tongue so that the baby will begin to swallow. And it takes her, for that one sweet potato, it takes her the better part of the day probably. because she's just so weak. That night she dies, but her baby lives. That's sacrificial. So, best thing about moms, great moms, they're willing to sacrifice for the child. Another great thing about a mother, best thing about a mother, she never gives up when there's hope. If there's hope, maybe others will give up, but not mom. Not mom, not when it comes to her child. If there is hope, she's all on board. Many years ago in Scotland, there was, in Scotland, during harvest time, not only the men would go out, but the women would go out as well to do the harvest. And of course, if you have a child, you have to bring the child along as well during the harvest. And there was a Scottish woman by the name of Hannah Lamond. And she's out in the harvest, and during this time, a large eagle flies down and snatches up her little baby and takes her little baby up to feed its eaglets. You know, I mean, eagles are pretty big, and so a little baby, they can pick up rabbits and everything else, but pick up a little baby, they can do that. And so, of course, everybody panics, and the eagle's nest is up on this cliff, and they all start trying to climb this sheer face of this cliff to get up there and save this baby. And so they're all climbing, and the men, and they're slipping, and it's just, you know, it's terrible. And there's one sailor that actually manages to get higher than almost everybody else, and he's at the top, but he can't hang on. He can't get there. But then they notice that Hannah is climbing too. And Hannah, no matter how many slips, no matter how many falls, no matter how many scrapes and bruises, Hannah is going up that cliff. And she does make it. She gets to the top, and the eagle starts trying to beat her off with its wings, etc. And it's not stopping Hannah. And she gets her baby, and she makes it all the way down to the ground, to the cheering, of course, everybody else. But that illustrates just how far a mom will go for her child. Even though everybody else says it's impossible, the mom's going to go and make it possible. Great moms don't quit. Possibly, though, the best illustration of this refusal from the Bible of not admitting defeat when it comes to the hope of your child is found in the tale of the Shunammite women. There was a woman from Shunem, and this woman was a fairly well-to-do woman. She was married to an older man, and she had noticed the prophet Elisha coming through, and they had welcomed Elisha in to have a meal with them, etc., on a few occasions. And then she suggested to her husband, she said, well, let's make a room for him up on the roof. We'll put a bed up there, a lamp, and a table, and things like that, chair where he can study there and have the place of peace whenever he travels through. So they did. And so this is the original from the term prophet's room that you may have sometimes heard. And so anytime Elisha would pass, he would go up on the roof, and this was his little place that he could stay when he was shooting. Well, one time he's up there, and he's talking to his servant Gehazi, and he says, you know, what can we do for this woman? What can we do, you know, to really bless her? And Gehazi says, well, you know, she's a rich woman. Says, well, she doesn't have a son, and her husband's really old. He says, we'll call her up. And so the woman comes up, and he says, you know, about this time next year, you're going to get pregnant. About this time next year, you're going to have a baby of your own. And she says, don't fool with me. You know, this is, you know, they've been trying, I'm sure, for years. Don't fool with me. This is not even said, no, you're going to have a baby. Well, sure enough, she does. She has this baby. She has a son. He begins to grow up. And one day he's out in the fields with his father. And he starts to say, my head, my head. And so the father sends him back to the house. And he sits on his mom's lap. And she just holds him and rocks him. And he just gets sicker and sicker. And he dies. So they take him up, and she lays him down in the room where Elisha would stay, right on Elisha's bed. And then she asked her husband, not telling him what's going on, says, have one of your servants saddle me a donkey and have the servant come with me. I'm going to go see the prophet. He says, why? He says, it's not the new moon, it's not the Sabbath. He says, just do it. I'm just going to go. Okay. So she goes, and she starts traveling off to see Elisha. Elisha, meanwhile, in the distance, sees her coming. And he sends Gehazi out. He says, go see what's going on. You know, is something going on? And I mean, is she all right? Is her husband all right? Her child all right? What's going on? Gehazi goes out and says, what's going on? She says, everything's fine. Until she gets to Elisha. And we pick up the story in 2 Kings 4, 27 through 37. When she reached the man of God at the mountain, she took hold of his feet. Gehazi came over to push her away, but the man of God said, leave her alone, she's in bitter distress. But the Lord has hidden it from me and has not told me why. Did I ask you for a son, my Lord? She said, didn't I tell you don't raise my hopes? Elisha said to Gehazi, tuck your cloak into your belt, take my staff in your hand and run. Don't greet anyone you meet. If anyone greets you, do not answer. Lay my staff on the boy's face. But the child's mother said, as surely as the Lord lives and as you live, I will not leave you. So he got up and followed. Gehazi went on ahead and laid the staff on the boy's face. There was no sound or response. So Gehazi went back to meet Elisha and told him, the boy's not awake. When Elisha reached the house, there was the boy lying dead on his couch. He went in, shut the door on the two of them, and prayed to the Lord. Then he got on the bed and lay on the boy, mouth to mouth, eyes to eyes, hands to hands. As he stretched himself out on him, the boy's body grew warm. Elisha turned away and walked back and forth in the room. And then he got on the bed and stretched out on him once more. The boy sneezed 7 times and opened his eyes. Elisha summoned Gehazi and said, call the Shunammite. And he did. And when she came, he said, take your son. She came in, fell at his feet, and bowed to the ground. Then she took her son. What I like about this story is this is a woman who is absolutely not going to give up. I mean, the boy's dead. And she still says, no, saddle my donkey. And when she gets there, she refuses to be stopped by anybody until she gets to Elisha. And then he said, well, no, let me send this down. No, I am not leaving. I am not leaving. She is determined. She is determined. This is a man who had prayed to God, and she had gotten a son, and she is determined that she's going to get her son back. Some mothers, they face seemingly insurmountable odds with their children. But great mothers don't just throw up their hands and give up. Great mothers persevere. They pray and they press on. One of the greatest African American pastors in American history, Dr. E.B. Hill, was pastor of the Mount Zion Missionary Baptist Church in Los Angeles. Friends with Billy Graham, great pastor. If you ever hear a chance to listen to some of his sermons, listen to some of his sermons. But he was born in poverty. And in the Depression, his mother, he was one of 5 children, and his mother just couldn't afford to take care of him. So she sent him off when he was really little to live with another woman in Sweet Home. And he just called her Mama, this friend. And Mama was going to raise this boy. She was not going to be content to just have this boy just be just a normal kid, and just living like, no. This boy was going to go to school. He was going to go to college. She was going to guarantee that this happened. And so she worked hard. She struggled with him. She trained him. She guided him. And finally, he was going to go off to college. She said this. She said, now go off to Prairie College, and Mama's going to be praying for you. Mama's going to be praying for you when you go off. And so he goes. She gives him $5 and a bus ticket. He goes off to Prairie College, and he's standing in line. By this time, the $5 down to $1.90. But as he's standing in line, he notices that the registration for classes is $80. He doesn't have $80. What's he going to do? And E.V. Hill says, the devil was telling me to get out of line. The devil was telling me to get out of line. But what kept coming back to his head was, Mom was praying. Mom was praying. So he stood in line. He was nervous, as he's getting closer and closer to the front. And finally, the person in front of him gets stuff, moves off, and he's stepping up, and about this time he gets a tap on his shoulder. And there's a man, there's the doctor, his name is Dr. Drew. And he says, excuse me, are you E.V. Hill? He says, yeah. He says, are you E.V. Hill from Sweet Home? Yeah. What do you want with me? He says, we've been looking all day for you. We have a full 4-year scholarship that will pay for your tuition, your room and board, and give you $30 a month for spending. And all he could think about was, that Mama was praying. See, moms, godly mothers, don't give up hope. Don't give up hope. They keep pressing on, praying for their kids, even when times look impossible. Another best thing about a mom, she understands her child's potential. She believes in her child. She understands that her child can go great places. And she tries to encourage and strengthen that child to get them there, to get them to go where they need to go. Let me read you a quote from Thomas Edison. We all know who Thomas Edison was, the light bulb and various things. This is what Thomas said about his mom, Edison. He says, I did not have my mother long, but she cast over me an influence which has lasted all my life. The good effects of her early training I could never lose. If it had not been for her appreciation and her faith in me at a critical time in my experience, I should never likely have become an inventor. I was always a careless boy, and with a mother of a different mental caliber, I should have turned out badly. But her firmness, her sweetness, her goodness, her potent powers to keep me in the right path. My mother was the making of me. The memory of her will always be a blessing to me. Is the memory of your mother, she may be still alive, most of them probably, a blessing to you? When you think of your mom, has she been a blessing to you? I think for most of us the answer is yes. Our moms have blessed us so much. Were our moms perfect? No. They've been a blessing to us because they love us and they understand us and they look at our potential. And we see this with Jesus' mom Mary in John 2, 1 through 5. It says, on the third day a wedding took place in Cana in Galilee, and Jesus' mother was there. And Jesus and his disciples had also been invited to the wedding. When the wine was gone, Jesus' mother said to him, they have no more wine. Woman, why do you involve me? Jesus replied, my hour has not yet come. His mother said to the servants, do whatever he tells you. I love it. Do whatever he tells you. She's not taking no for an answer. She understands Jesus' potential. She knows what Jesus can do. We don't get any indication that he's done a whole bunch of miracles or anything else, right? No. First one recorded in the Bible. But she knows. She's a mom. She understands her son's potential. She said, well, do whatever he tells you to do, because it's going to be good, because I know it. She knows her son can perform a miracle. But it's also a great one-line sermon on how we should respond to Christ, isn't it? Now think about it. How should we respond to Christ? Do whatever he says. Do whatever he tells you to do. Great one-line sermon. I'll give you some other one-line sermons pastor had on the Bible. He said from his mom. He says, my mom preached some great one-line sermons to me as I was growing up. She had one from Revelation 19 about the coming judgment. Her one-line statement was, wait till your father comes home. One-line sermon right there. Or she had one from Luke 2 about the nativity, right? Every time she left the front door open, she would ask, were you born in a barn? A great one-line sermon from Matthew 28 on international missions. There are children starving in India or China or wherever. Or Isaiah 53:5 about the substitutionary atonement. This is going to hurt me more than it hurts you. I think Mary's statement's better though, right? Do whatever he says. Moms don't even have to speak though, do they? Moms oftentimes will just give you the look. You know exactly what she's saying. She doesn't have to use a one-liner, just that look. Or the sigh. But the one I like the best, the smile. When your mom smiles at you, that speaks volumes, doesn't it? Now the best thing is she remains faithful to the end. The natural order of things is the mother dies before the child. It's not always the case, is it? To see your child die is devastating. John 19:25. Jesus' crucifixion. Near the cross of Jesus stood his mother. His mother's sister, Mary, the wife of Clopas, and Mary Magdalene. But I want you to pay attention to those words. Near the cross of Jesus stood his mother. She's not back home. She's not saying, no, this is too dramatic for me. I just can't take it. I mean, crucifixion was horrible, right? She's not far away. She's not in the distance. She's near the cross, and she's standing there to the very end. And then, how wonderful and powerful when Christ came back, right? Can you imagine Mary's faith carrying her through, and then he returns? What joy that was to him. Another thing, the last thing for today, the best thing about a mom is she points her children to Christ. She points her children to Christ. Godly mothers point their children to Christ. Countless Christian leaders can trace their faith back to their mothers. Probably one of the most famous ones is a woman named Monica, whose husband was unfaithful, and yet she still prayed for him. And eventually he did come to Christ. But her son was a wastrel. He was just, living in sin and doing different things and living with a woman who wasn't his wife, and la, 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 la. And she kept praying and praying and praying and praying for this man. And he became Augustine of Hippo, the great Augustine of Hippo, who credited the fact that his mom prayed for him. Her example in life was a lot what led him to Christ. The most famous biblical example is in 2 Timothy 1:5. It says, I'm reminded of your sincere faith, which first lived in your grandmother Lois and in your mother Eunice, and I am persuaded now lives in you also. Paul's talking to Timothy. And he's recognizing the fact that Timothy's mom, Eunice, And of course, the grandmother, Lois as well. But Timothy's mom, Eunice, was influential in seeing Timothy come to Christ. The influence of a godly mother is absolutely tremendous. Back in 1950, a woman by the name of Susanna Prentice was living on the coast of Maine with her family, her husband Miles, daughter Annie, son James and John. Everyone in the family was a Christian except John. John was unsaved and rebelling against it. Didn't want to have anything to do with this. Well, times were tough. They were lobster fishermen. They needed to go out in the ocean. Otherwise, they're going to turn off the electricity in the house. But, the weather report said it was going to be bad. But Miles and James still went out. Still went out on the boat. And sure enough, they got out there, and it got so bad that, they got to the point they couldn't even see land. They didn't know their instruments were out. They didn't know where to go. And Susanna was praying. And she said, I don't know. She says, they're lost. They're out there. She says, I'm going to light a lamp. She took this lamp and she went up into the attic and she put it in the window. And her son, John, is like, they can't see it from there. There's no way they can see it from there. She says, I still feel I need to do this, and I'm going to pray. And so she prayed. Meanwhile, out in the ocean, James looks out and he sees something. He sees a tiny pinpoint of light. They have no idea what it is, but says, we might as well go toward it. And sure enough, it brings them safely home. And John, seeing this answer to prayer, seeing this unwavering faith in his mom, decides, maybe I need to be steering my life toward the life that my mother steers hers after, Jesus Christ. And so he accepted Christ. A few months later, though, he got sick and he was dying. And the doctor was saying there's no hope. But John's attitude was, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Because I'm going to a heavenly harbor. And I am following the life that my mom showed, Jesus Christ. Lots of reasons that we could say our mom is the best. My question for us today is, aren't our moms worth honoring? Aren't our moms worth honoring? Four preachers were sitting around discussing which version of the Bible is best. One said, I like the KJV because of the language, the beauty of it. Another said, no, I like the American Revised Version because I think it's closer to the Hebrew and the Greek. And another said, no, I like the Message, because it's contemporary, it's modern, it's easy to understand. Another guy said, no, I like my mom's translation. I said, what? I said, no, I like my mom's translation. She translated it into life for me. And it was the most convincing translation of the gospel. Best thing about my mom, she wasn't perfect. She loved me, yes. My mom knew that I was a gift from God. My mom understood my potential. She never gave up hope in me, etc. But the best thing in my life about my mom was that my mom, I never had to doubt where her faith was. I always knew. Her Bible, I have the Bible up here, and I use this one primarily for just sitting on the pulpit with me. It's nice and neat and everything else. I have lots of Bibles. I have Bibles on my phone, etc. Back then, my mom had one or two Bibles that she used, and it was just all, because of use. And she used it everywhere. She carried it with her into the bathroom. She had it everywhere with her. She didn't go beating me over the head with it, but I knew where she stood. I remember as a child going out on visitations, and to me it was a little bit uncomfortable going to people's houses that I didn't know, and my mom was there, and she was going there to share the gospel. She was going there to pray with people. Because that's who she was. Her faith was always there. And that was a wonderful translation of the Bible. So, got a couple of minutes before we end. I want to ask you, what is the best thing about your mom? Anything? Anybody want to share? Best thing about your mom?
She's loving.
She's loving. Best thing about your mom? Wesley, I know you have something to say.
Nice.
She's nice. Best thing about your mom is she's nice. Discipline? Discipline. She's a disciplinarian. Does a great thing about it. We need somebody to keep us accountable, right? Your mom may be passed away. Your mom may still be around. What's the best thing about your mom?
She fed me.
She fed you. Yeah, my mom fed me too.
She loves to give.
She loves to give. Best thing about your mom?
Always.
She gives good advice.
Always there.
Always there. Caring.
Changes our dirty diapers.
Change your dirty diapers. That's important. Smile and sang to you. Anybody else?
She says she's proud of me.
Says she's proud of you.
Gave me hope.
Gave you hope. Excellent.
She gave birth to me.
She gave birth to you. Good. Counselor.
She teaches me the skills I need to live by myself.
Very good. Teaches me the skills to live by myself. And we could go on and on. And I encourage you today to do that. If you haven't told your mom, then some of you may just have to say, Jesus, would you please tell my mom? You know. But if you haven't told your mom today, tell her. Tell her how much she means to you. Tell her how much she continues to do for you. Encourage her. Let's pray. Father God, we want to thank you so much for our mothers. We thank you for what they mean to us, for what they've done for us. We just ask for your continued blessing. In Christ's name.
For a time that we can honor our God